Las Vegas. To the outside world, it's the entertainment capital of America, a city of casinos, concerts, and neon dreams. But in September 2025, the shine cracked. What emerged was a month of scandals, protests, and economic shocks that exposed just how fragile Sin City really is. This wasn't just about fewer tourists or lower hotel rates. This was about record-breaking fines hitting world-famous casinos, about a state senator found asleep at the wheel in the middle of the night, about 8,000 protesters flooding the strip clashing with police under clouds of tear gas, and about the quiet struggles in neighborhoods where job losses, housing crashes, and failing public services threatened the very people who built this city. In a single month, Las Vegas became more than a playground. It became a warning. A warning that when the lights dim and the headlines hit, even the brightest empire in the desert can unravel. This video will uncover the biggest scandals, the loudest protests, and the deepest crises that shook Las Vegas in September, and explain why October 2025 may be the most important test the city has faced in years. Because if Vegas will never be the same, the real question is, what will it become next? The glittering casinos of Las Vegas have always promised fortune, but by late September 2025, they were at the center of headlines for a very different reason. Financial scandals. What shocked many wasn't a losing hand on the gaming floor, but the size of the penalties hitting some of the Strip's most iconic names. First came Resorts World Las Vegas, the sleek mega casino that was supposed to represent the future of Sin City. Regulators dropped the hammer with a $10.5 million fine, the second largest in Nevada's history, for failing to enforce anti-money laundering rules. Investigators revealed that unlicensed gamblers had funneled millions of dollars through the resort for more than a year without proper checks. To locals and tourists alike, it was a reminder that even the city's newest jewel was vulnerable to the same shadows that have haunted Las Vegas for decades. But that scandal was only the opening act. The real bombshell came from Wynn Resorts, the operator of the luxury Wynn and Encore properties. After a 10-year federal investigation, Wynn agreed to pay $130 million to the Department of Justice in a non-prosecution agreement. The case centered on foreign money transfer services that secretly moved cash for high-rolling gamblers violating U.S. banking laws. For Vegas, the number was historic, the largest financial settlement ever imposed on a casino by federal prosecutors. Wynn insisted that the violations were tied to former employees, but for many observers, the damage to its reputation was irreversible, and the scandals didn't end with the casinos. In federal court, a former Las Vegas business executive was sentenced to 51 months in prison for orchestrating a fraudulent investment scheme that stole $6.1 million from clients. Another case saw 3 men indicted for a massive mail fraud operation, scamming elderly Americans with promises of fake sweepstakes winnings. Perhaps the most modern scandal of all came from Brent Kovar, a self-styled Las Vegas tech entrepreneur. Federal prosecutors accused him of masterminding a $24 million cryptocurrency scam, luring investors with promises of revolutionary blockchain technology. Instead, he used the money to bankroll luxury cars, lavish homes, and a high-roller Vegas lifestyle. Kovar now faces multiple counts of wire fraud, mail fraud, and money laundering. Together, these cases painted a damning picture. The Strip wasn't just about high-stakes blackjack or slot machines. It had become a breeding ground for white-collar crime. The mix of fast cash transient visitors and global money flows created the perfect storm for corruption. For outsiders, the message was chilling. If the most glamorous casinos in America's gambling capital could be tainted by fraud and federal probes, then perhaps the entire city was more fragile than its neon image suggested. And for locals, the scandals fueled an old suspicion that while the lights shine bright for tourists, the real winners in Las Vegas are often those who know how to cheat the system. If the financial scandals showed the cracks inside the casinos, the streets of Las Vegas revealed something far more explosive. On September 14th, the Strip, usually glowing with tourists snapping selfies under neon lights, was transformed into the front line of a political showdown. An estimated 8,000 protesters flooded Las Vegas Boulevard under the banner of the No Kings movement, a campaign sweeping across the nation against the Trump administration's immigration crackdowns. The crowd was a striking mix of immigrant families, union workers, students, and retirees. Many carried signs in both English and Spanish with messages like, "America is our country, not your kingdom." For residents of East Las Vegas, the demonstration was deeply personal. Families feared sudden ICE raids, children feared losing their parents, and small businesses watched their communities hollow out as customers disappeared. At first, the protest felt more like a march for unity than a confrontation. There were flags, waving music playing, and chants echoing down the strip. But as the sun set and the crowd grew louder, tension with police escalated. Officers in riot gear declared the gathering an unlawful assembly after demonstrators blocked traffic near the Bellagio fountains. Moments later, the air filled with the sharp sting of tear gas. Rubber bullets were fired. Tourists in sequin dresses and party outfits suddenly found themselves running alongside activists in masks, all coughing in clouds of chemical spray. By the night's end, 15 people had been arrested and 4 officers were injured. Social media lit up with videos showing the surreal clash, protesters holding homemade signs against a backdrop of billion-dollar casinos, families shielding children from tear gas just yards away from roulette tables. Local leaders scrambled to respond. Supporters of the movement argued the heavy-handed crackdown only proved their point, that Las Vegas, a city built by immigrant labor, was being torn apart by policies that punished the very workers who sustained it. Critics accused the protesters of endangering tourism, the lifeblood of the city, by creating chaos on its most famous boulevard. Whatever the perspective, one truth stood out. The No Kings protest exposed deep fractures in Las Vegas society. The Strip, once a symbol of entertainment and escape, had become a battleground for America's fiercest debates over immigration, freedom, and identity. Just as the dust from the No Kings protest was settling, another scandal rocked Nevada politics. On the early morning of September 12th, police in Las Vegas arrested Edgar Flores, a Democratic state senator, on suspicion of DUI. The story quickly dominated local headlines, not because DUI arrests are rare, but because of the circumstances surrounding it. According to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, officers discovered Flores' car stopped at a red light near North Lamb Boulevard and East Lake Mead Parkway around 4:00 a.m. The vehicle's engine was running, it was in drive, and his foot was on the brake, but Flores was asleep at the wheel. Body cam footage later showed officers knocking repeatedly on the window before waking him. When questioned, Flores admitted he had been out playing soccer with friends earlier that night and had a few drinks. The images were damaging. Here was a first-term senator once praised as a rising star and advocate for immigrant communities, now shown on video slumped over in his car, visibly groggy and disoriented. For a city already grappling with falling tourism job losses and protests in the streets, the idea of a local leader literally asleep at the wheel felt symbolic of deeper dysfunction. Flores quickly denied being intoxicated, claiming fatigue was the real cause, but the public wasn't convinced. Critics pounced, demanding accountability, while supporters were left struggling to defend him. Social media turned the arrest into a viral spectacle, with memes portraying him as both reckless and emblematic of Nevada politics gone wrong. In a month filled with financial scandals and public unrest, the downfall of Edgar Flores wasn't just another headline. It was proof that even the city's leaders were caught up in the chaos, a reminder that in Las Vegas, no one, not even elected officials, could escape the storm of September 2025. Behind the neon glow of the Las Vegas Strip, the numbers told a sobering story. By the end of September 2025, the city had welcomed only 22.6 million visitors between January and June, nearly 2 million fewer than the same period in 2024. For a city that thrives on outsiders spending big, the drop was nothing short of alarming. The decline hit hardest in international tourism. Travelers from Canada and Mexico, long considered 2 of Nevada's most reliable markets, fell sharply. Analysts didn't hesitate to point fingers at what they called the Trump slump, a mix of tariffs, immigration crackdowns, and inflation that discouraged visitors. Even families from nearby California, especially those of Latino heritage, began skipping Vegas weekends fearing immigration raids or simply unable to justify the rising costs. And those costs were everywhere. Tourists vented on social media about resort fees, parking charges, and $20 cocktails that made the once affordable playground feel more like a money trap. Buffets that once symbolized Vegas abundance now carried price tags of $50 or more. For middle-class Americans facing high gas prices and nationwide inflation, Vegas was starting to feel out of reach. The impact rippled through the city's economy. On the Strip average, hotel rates slipped 5% to around $198 per night. In downtown, Las Vegas smaller properties slashed prices to $90 just to fill rooms. Despite the discounts, occupancy still lagged. Caesars Entertainment and MGM Resorts, two of the biggest casino operators, admitted to investors that demand in Las Vegas was soft, even as their properties in other markets thrived. The gaming tables told the same story. Strip gambling revenue fell nearly 1% in the first half of the year. On paper, that may look small, but in Vegas, even a minor dip in gambling is a red flag. The city has built its mythology on endless growth, and when the growth stalls, fear spreads quickly. For workers, the reality was immediate. Fewer tourists meant fewer shifts, shorter hours, and thinner paychecks. Union leaders warned of looming layoffs if the downturn continued into the fall. For executives, the nightmare was bigger that Las Vegas, once the undisputed entertainment capital, might be losing its global appeal. By the close of September, the warning signs were flashing bright red. The chance of union workers on Labor Day had asked whether one job was enough to survive in the city. The tourist crash raised a harsher question: was Las Vegas becoming too expensive for its own survival? While casinos scrambled to attract visitors, another sector of Las Vegas was collapsing in silence: the housing market. By mid-September, data from Redfin made headlines nationwide, declaring Las Vegas the fastest cooling real estate market in the United States. The statistics were stark. The supply of homes for sale had skyrocketed by 31% compared to last year, while pending sales dropped 8.6% and completed sales fell 8.5%. After years of bidding wars and record highs, the desert boomtown had turned into what analysts bluntly called a sell-off city. Drive through suburban areas like Henderson or Summerlin, and the change was unmistakable. Streets once lined with sold signs now carried a forest of for-sale placards, many of them sitting untouched for months. Sellers slashed, asking prices, offered concessions, even threw in extras, but buyers were nowhere to be found. Why the sudden shift? First, stubbornly high mortgage rates kept many families locked out of the market. Second, new short-term rental restrictions cut deep into the profits of Airbnb landlords, forcing them to unload properties. And third, the downturn in tourism and job growth meant fewer newcomers moving to the valley to fuel housing demand. The vulnerability of Las Vegas's housing market was clear. Unlike coastal cities with diverse economies, Vegas relies heavily on hospitality, entertainment, and construction. As those industries faltered, so did people's ability to qualify for mortgages. Even luxury condos along the Strip weren't immune as high-rise listings piled up, and investors rushed to cash out before values slid further. Analysts warned that the combination of economic slowdown, rising living costs, and oversupply could send Las Vegas into another housing slump, reminiscent of the 2008 crash. For ordinary residents, the dream of homeownership grew more distant, while renters faced the cruel irony of high rents despite a cooling market. By the end of September, the verdict was unavoidable. The real estate engine that once fueled Las Vegas growth was stalling fast. Just like its casinos, the city's housing market was proving that the desert's golden empire was built on fragile ground. As September closed, the spotlight in Las Vegas turned away from casinos and real estate to the daily struggles of its residents. Beneath the neon spectacle, ordinary families were facing a storm of job losses, strained hospitals, and broken community services. The unemployment rate in the Las Vegas metro area hit nearly 6%, one of the highest among large U.S. cities. In just 1 month, more than 4,300 jobs had disappeared, mostly in construction and hospitality, the very industries that built the city's identity. For workers who once counted on overtime at crowded casinos or steady paychecks from building new resorts, the sudden silence of canceled shifts was devastating. At the same time, the city's housing affordability crisis deepened. Even with more homes flooding the market, rents remained painfully high. Union leaders warned that Vegas risked becoming a place where the people who keep the city alive could no longer afford to live there. The crisis stretched into healthcare. University Medical Center, UMC, the Valley's largest public hospital, admitted it was running dangerously short on funds. Officials warned that without emergency support from Clark County, essential services like emergency care and low-income treatment could collapse. For thousands of residents without private insurance, UMC was their lifeline, and that lifeline was fraying. Even the city's animals were caught in the storm. The Animal Foundation, Las Vegas's primary shelter, faced outrage over reports of overcrowding, neglect, and euthanasia rates rising out of control. In late September, city leaders reluctantly approved an $11 million extension for the shelter, but only under strict conditions for reform. The vote highlighted a painful reality. While billions were poured into entertainment complexes and casino expansions, basic community services were left scrambling. Walking through neighborhoods in East Las Vegas or North Las Vegas, the contrast was stark. Shiny billboards promoted luxury concerts and new casinos, while just blocks away, food banks were overwhelmed, families doubled up in small apartments, and residents lined up for free healthcare clinics. For many locals, September didn't feel like a month of temporary setbacks. It felt like proof that Sin City's foundations were crumbling, and that the real crisis wasn't on the Strip, but in the lives of the people who lived in its shadow. After a month of scandals, protests, and economic setbacks, the obvious question was, how can Las Vegas fix this? The problems run deep, but so do the potential solutions. First, the city must address its overdependence on tourism. When nearly 2 million fewer visitors shake an entire economy, it shows the danger of putting all bets on casinos and hotels. Diversifying into tech, healthcare, and convention industries could stabilize jobs and create growth not tied to the Strip's volatility. Some local leaders have already pushed to expand Las Vegas as a hub for international conferences and esports industries less vulnerable to fluctuating travel trends. Second, housing reform is critical. With a 31% surge in homes for sale and rents still punishingly high, Vegas needs more than quick fixes. Advocates argue for affordable housing initiatives, zoning changes that allow mixed-use development, and stronger tenant protections. If workers can't afford to live in the city, the entire service economy collapses. Third, labor rights must remain central. The rally at the Sphere on Labor Day was more than a protest. It was a roadmap. Union voices demanding that one job should be enough highlight the need for fair contracts, livable wages, and healthcare coverage. If billion-dollar casino operators continue to thrive, then so should the employees who keep the neon running. Fourth, restoring public trust is essential. The scandal of Edgar Flores, the fines at Resorts World and Wynn Resorts, and the neglect at UMC and the Animal Foundation have all weakened confidence in institutions. Transparent governance, accountability for corruption, and investment in community services could begin to repair the breach. Finally, the social fabric of Las Vegas demands attention. The No Kings protest showed that immigration policy isn't abstract here, it's a lived reality for thousands. Building bridges with immigrant communities, ensuring protections, and fostering inclusion aren't just moral imperatives, they're economic ones. Vegas cannot thrive without the very workers and families who have always powered it. The road ahead won't be easy, but the solutions exist. What's needed is the political will and the courage to prioritize residents over short-term profits. Because for Las Vegas, survival depends not only on tourists, but on the strength of the community living in its shadow. In just 1 month, Las Vegas revealed a side of itself that most tourists never see. The City of Lights was overshadowed by record-breaking casino fines, a political scandal that embarrassed state leadership, and a mass protest that turned the Strip into a battlefield. Add to that The collapse of tourism, a plunging housing market, and cracks in the city's most basic services from hospitals to animal shelters, and the message was undeniable. Sin City is facing a reckoning. For decades, Las Vegas sold itself as untouchable, a playground immune to the problems of the outside world. But September 2025 proved otherwise. Behind the glamour, the city is grappling with the same issues haunting America at large: economic inequality, political failure, social unrest, and fragile infrastructure. So the question isn't whether Las Vegas will bounce back. The question is, what kind of city will it become? Will it double down on the neon dream and hope the crowds return? Or will it confront its broken systems and rebuild for the people who actually live there? One thing is certain: after this month, Vegas will never be the same. And the rest of America should pay attention, because what happens in Las Vegas may not stay in Las Vegas. It may be a warning sign for the entire country